My favorite thing to do is not start filming until the sun is beginning to set, so my lighting is inconsistent the entirety of a video. Hi, hey, I'm Morgan, and today I'm going to be bringing you my April wrap-up and going over all of the books that I read in the month of April. April was a much better month for me than March was in terms of my reading, so I'm just going to jump into my stats, which I'm super excited about, and then talk about these books, which I'm way more excited to talk about. In the month of April, I read a total of 6 books, which amounted to be a total of 1,510 pages. I had a pretty mixed bag of reviews, but they amounted to be a 4.0 average. I at least enjoyed all the books that I read this month. All but one of the books that I read this month were books that I owned, the last one being a library book, and 2 books were audiobooks, while the remaining 4 were physical books. So in typical MorgyyReads fashion, I will be doing mini reviews for each of the books that I read this month, starting from my lowest rated book, working up to my highest rated. First thing that I read, the lowest rated thing of the month, was a graphic novel, and that is Snotgirl Volume 1. This is written by Bryan Lee O'Malley with illustrations by Leslie Hung. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. So this follows our main character, Lottie, and she is a fashion blogger. Her online persona is much different from who she is in real life. Online, she is just perfect, but in reality, she has horrible allergies. Her nose is always running. People make fun of her and call her Snotty or Snotgirl. And she is doing a test trial for a new allergy medication, and it's kind of been fucking with her. And she may have killed someone. This is the second thing by Bryan Lee O'Malley that I've read aside from the Scott Pilgrim series. I wasn't the biggest fan of this graphic novel. I think that the storytelling was really inconsistent and really confusing, and I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be on purpose or not. I do understand that there's like a slight unreliability because we're in Lottie's head a majority of the time, and that can cause a little bit of fuzziness because of what she's going through with her confusion with this new allergy medication and what she's dealing with mentally, but it just led for some unanswered questions, and I don't know when Volume 2 of this comes out. I do plan on continuing this series and reading Volume 2. I will say that the art style in this graphic novel is absolutely stunning. I love Leslie Hung's illustrations. I've never seen her do anything before, but I'm really glad that I picked up this graphic novel and got to experience some of her illustrations. Don't act like that's not the prettiest thing you've ever seen, aside from me, am I right? No. I plan on continuing with the series, but it did fall a little flat for me. The next book that I read, I just barely finished, and I actually listened to it on audiobook, and that is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns by Mindy Kaling. This is a collection of essays by Mindy Kaling, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I listened to this on audiobook, and it was narrated by Mindy Kaling and had some appearances by BJ Novak as well as some other people. I really like Mindy Kaling. I love her on The Office. I think that she was a phenomenal asset to the show, and I didn't know that she wrote and produced for it as well. Shows how attentive I am. But this is just her telling bits and pieces of her life in a collection of essays, and I thought it was really funny. This wasn't my favorite nonfiction book or memoir by someone in this realm, but it was still enjoyable. Reading this in her voice was definitely a good decision. The next book that I'm going to talk about, I rated 4 out of 5 stars, and it was another graphic novel, and that is Archie Volume 2. This is written by Waid with illustrations by Veronica Fish, and I loved this. I think that it continued the story from Volume 1 really beautifully. I've just really been enjoying this rebooted, modernized version of Archie. It brings that nostalgia of the original comics, but obviously it's more modernized. They're a little bit easier to relate to in this circumstance, and I really like it. I love Veronica Fish's illustrations. I love how authentic these kids feel and how Mark Waid writes their story, and just, I love it. I love it so much. I cannot wait to continue with this graphic novel series. The next book that I'm going to be talking about was also a 4-star read, and it was also a memoir, and also one that I listened to on audiobook, and that was I've Got This Round, More Tales of Debauchery by Mamrie Hart. I implore all of you to listen to this book on audio. I truly believe there was nothing better than listening to Mamrie Hart read her own audiobook and just dying laughing at her own jokes. I loved it so much. I really enjoyed this book. I love Mamrie Hart. I love this book. She's great. And now we're getting into the last 2 books that I read this month. Both were 5-star reads, and I'm so jazzed to talk about them with you. The first one I'm going to talk about is the one that I borrowed from the library, and it was also the Hot Mess Book Club Book of the Month for April, and that was Love, Hate, and Other Filters by Samira Amed. I loved this book. This follows our main character, Maya, and she is 17 years old and getting ready to move forward in her life, and she was accepted to NYU for film, and she wants to go there and just be a filmmaker, but her parents want her to go to school in the University of Chicago, closer to home, and also they want her to marry a traditional Muslim boy as an Indian American woman. She just doesn't want that for herself. She has a crush on a boy in her class, and that seems to be developing really well, and then everything kind of shifts and changes when a terrorist attack occurs, and the prime suspect shares the same last name as Maya, and Maya is thrown into this world of Islamophobia and being seen in a different light from people that she's known forever. I was so worried with how short it was that it wasn't going to be good, and that it was going to be horribly paced, and that I was not going to enjoy it. But if you go and watch the Hot Mess live show for this that we had last week on Rhiannon's channel, which I'll link in the description, you'll know that I obviously really loved this book. I was teetering on like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and then I read the author's note and the acknowledgements after I finished this, and I was an emotional mess and couldn't not rate it 5 stars. I think this book was stunning and beautifully written, and I really enjoyed Maya's voice, and I think that she felt very authentic. Clearly, I cannot speak on the Indian American representation in this book, because I am a white girl. I will be finding Own Voices reviews and linking them in the description as well. I think this was a stunning book. I can't wait to read more by Samira Amed because I believe this was her debut. I don't think any of you are going to be surprised when I say what my final 5-star book of the month was and what I'm going to be ranting about for the next like 10-15 minutes. That would be The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Listen, I was hiding from this book. It has been super hyped. The buzz has been bountiful. So many of my friends on BookTube and so many people that's views I really respect and look for have been saying nothing but rave things about this book. And I was like, oh, I don't think I'll really be into it. And then I read the synopsis and I heard the premise and I was like, why the fuck have I been hiding from this? What the fuck, Richard? So this follows 2 characters, Monique Grant and Evelyn Hugo. Monique Grant is just a nobody journalist. She writes puff pieces for this local magazine, and Evelyn Hugo is this loved and this iconic Hollywood starlet, and she has been in the media for basically her entire life, and something that has always circulated her was the scandal of her having 7 husbands. Well, Evelyn Hugo is doing this gown auction, and she emails the magazine that Monique works at and is like, I want Monique Grant to interview me or nobody at all. Monique goes to Evelyn expecting to just do this small story. Come to find out, Evelyn wants to tell her her whole story and for her to write her biography. That's my favorite trope in literature, in movies, in TV, everything. I love when an older person sits down and tells a younger person their life story. This has just so much amazing representation. Monique is a biracial woman. Evelyn is a Cuban American bisexual woman. This book was so beautiful and it absolutely decimated me emotionally. I love this book. This is my favorite book that I've read this year. It's like on the short list on my favorite books of all time. I love this book. Look at all those annotations. I got this as a library copy first, and I read the first 100 pages, and I was like, I can't not have my own copy of this book. And I went to the book loft a day later, and I bought it, and I annotated the actual fuck out of this book. The writing is incredible. Evelyn's voice is amazing. Monique's voice is amazing. I loved this book. There were twists and turns that I was not expecting and things that I was just not emotionally prepared for. Samantha Lan over at Lan's Lit was my emotional support through reading this book. I was texting her all of my thoughts because she read this before me. I was just texting her all of my feelings and just screaming over text. The real MVP of my experience reading this book. I loved it so very much. I can't say good enough things about it. I already want to reread it because that's who I am as a person. It's beautiful, it's great, and I just am so happy that I read this book. Hey guys, there you have it. That was my April wrap up and me talking, or rather gushing, about the books that I read this past month. Please let me know what you read in the comments. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you felt about them, if you plan on reading Evelyn Hugo, because I implore you to do so. And if you like this video, you're more than welcome to leave it a thumbs up or whatever. And if you haven't already and want to see more of my mug, you can always subscribe. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Yeah, like I said, my name is Morgan. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and happy reading. Okay, bye!